Then, going down yet another level, you can come to a population. And this is interacting or interbreeding organisms. An example might be the fiddler crabs in a salt marsh, or here we see an interesting population. These are tube worms that are up to a meter or more in length that you find down at these black smokers. If we move down yet another level, we come to organisms. Organisms have three important sort of characteristics that we'll talk quite a bit about in this course. They carry out metabolism, which is the sum of all the different chemical reactions necessary for life. They undergo regulated growth. And they reproduce. And the sort of fundamental unit of life that we will talk about over and over again in this course is known as a cell. And life comes in two kinds of species. There's unicellular life, where the organism is just a single cell, and a multicellular forms of life that are made of many different types of cells. What's a cell? One of the secrets to life. It's a little tiny bit of the universe that's surrounded by a boundary. It's given the special name of a membrane. It's selective, not very permeable to most things, and cells are able to put little importers and exporters and things that control the passage of things across the membrane. And by isolating the inside of a cell from all the rest of the universe, that's one of the principles that makes life possible. We have a couple of examples of organisms here. Here's some clams that grow down at those black smokers, and they can get pretty large. And as I say, Penny will talk a bit more about this. We have this really amazing diversity of life forms that we find on this planet. However, if we think about this division into unicellular multicellular organisms. Unicellular organisms include things that you're familiar with. They're bacteria. There's a picture of just E. coli cells, and we'll be talking about E. coli quite a bit as a model organism as we go through the course. It's been by studying E. coli, scientists have learned many important things that apply to all of life. Another kind of important single-celled organism, unicellular organism, is yeast. Those are pictures of yeast, Saccharomyces, that are used in baking bread or in brewing beer or making wine. Another one you're all familiar with are algae, which are single-celled organisms that are able to carry out photosynthesis, and we'll be talking about that. If we think of an example of a multicellular organism, then we see there are different levels at which we can think about this. We could take, for example, a picture of me, just an anatomically correct diagram here, that I'm made up, as you are, of about 10 to the 14th human cells. We all started out as a single fertilized egg fertilized egg, which is a single cell, and by the time we're grown up, where we have about 10 to the 14th human cells. Just a tremendous amount of cell growth that had to happen, and specialization. The other thing you may not appreciate is that we have an ecosystem inside us in our gastrointestinal tract, this part, the intestine, having the highest concentration of microorganisms, but there are about 10 to the 14th bacteria also inside of our gut. So we're actually almost the same number of human cells and bacterial cells. And if we don't have those bacteria, then our digestive systems don't work well. So if we go down from a whole organism, a whole multicellular organism, then a level, then we come to an organ. An example of that might be an eye, and I think we have a diagram of an eye, which is made up of different parts. And if we go down another level, we come to a tissue, which is, now you can begin to see that the tissue are made up of groups of specialized cells. An example might be the retina of an eye. And if we continue to go downwards, we'll get to single cells. And at this point, we're at the same level of detail as when we're talking about a unicellular organism. If we continue down, then we can get to organelles. These are involved in energy production, energy management. A mitochondrion and a chloroplast are the two principal examples of organelles that we'll talk about. And if we go down yet another level of organization, we get to molecules. And part of the reason that biology has flourished so well over the last few decades at MIT is that there's been a real emphasis on looking at things at a cellular and molecular level. So you're going to be hearing a lot about cells and a lot about molecules as we go through this course. Here's an example of rhodopsin. That's a protein. We'll be talking about what proteins are, but it's a very important class of molecule in nature. In this case, proteins involved in sensing light and plays an important part in your vision. Here's another protein. You can't really tell what it's doing by just looking at it, but in this case, this is is a lethal factor that's made by anthrax. It's one of the proteins that anthrax makes that's capable of killing you if you get infected with it. Here's another molecule we'll talk about in great detail. This is DNA. You probably all know it's a double helix. 2 strands of DNA that are held together by forces we'll be discussing. It's an absolutely beautiful molecule. It's fascinated me through all of my life, and we'll be talking quite a bit about that as the course goes on. Okay, so if we're thinking about cells, there are 2 important kinds of cells that one finds on this planet. Prokaryotic cells, at least prokaryotic organisms, and